So if you have ever either found yourself feeling misunderstood, unseen, or walked out of a business situation with a client where you felt like it went really well, but you didn't hear back, or you thought you closed the deal, but you didn't, or you thought you were getting to the next date, that didn't happen, then this is what I wanted to share with you. I recently just recorded a podcast around questions, asking the right questions to get the desired result that you're looking for in your love life or in work. So the podcast was around the fact that curiosity is a skill, and the reason that your questions are maybe costing you that next opportunity. So depending on who you're talking to is going to be dependent on if they feel heard, understood, met, connected. And oftentimes we talk to people the way we want to be talked to, or we assume that how we're communicating with people is how we want to be communicated with, or how we communicate. And this is what I see happen very often. And I've worked in corporate for many years in director level positions and in hiring and interviewing and all that stuff, where people think, hey, this went really well. Like, what happened? And now, I'd been married for 18 years, in that relationship for 25, and single now for almost 3 years. And I notice very similar things happening in the romantic world that happens in business, which is we assume that everyone else is having the same experience we're having. I can be having a conversation with you and I'm having a blast. And depending on my abilities to pick up and be in attunement with how you're feeling, what you're thinking, all those things, and pick up on some cues, I might think everything's great when it's not. So, having had situations where I have felt so frustrated on dates because either A, they're really bad at asking questions, or B, they ask a ton of questions and you just feel like you were being interviewed. You feel like you were being interrogated because the questions they asked were about them. So they're asking questions about you for themselves. They're not asking questions about you to get to know you. Does that make sense? So, and I've been guilty of this, where I'm really excited about a topic, or I really want to see if this situation is going to be successful. I'm talking about in business or in personal life. And so I can gear my questions towards that outcome I'm going for. The problem is I can totally miss out on the opportunity of really connecting and getting to know the person. So on these dates, for example, I could be asked, oh, well, what do you do? What do you do for work? Or how long have you lived here? Or what sorts of things do you like to do for fun? Or when was your last relationship? I'm giving you very just basic questions that have come up from others. And it's not that those are bad questions per se. It's the lack of asking the next question after. Because if my answer fits the box, checks the box for them, okay, she does this, I'm good with that. Okay, next question, right? Then the next question comes, oh, okay, she likes this, I like this. Okay, let me move to the next question, because the questions are serving the purpose of, again, fitting this checklist versus another archetype. So that's one way that there's actually a blend between two different, I talk about energetic frequency archetypes. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you're interested, you can take the quiz for free. But there's archetypes that can explain or help us understand how we naturally show up in situations, how we've adapted based on certain experiences in our life. So like our condition response and then our stress response. And all of those different factors kind of make up how people see us. And the more we understand those different patterns of behavior, the better we can communicate, the more we have a chance to really connect with someone. And so another archetype, they care more about not just like, what do you do? Where do you work? How long you've been there? Like, what do you love about what you do? How long have you been doing that? Like, what got you into that work? Why is this so important for you? I can't tell you the last time, if ever, I've been asked that question. And so I'm giving you ideas of how you can start to see how you ask questions will determine if that person is feeling connected or not. Now, the person that wants to know if you, the person that wants you to ask questions about not how long have you been there, but what brought you there? What do you love about it? This is a person that connection is very important for them, feeling connected. They kind of are really great at understanding people, energy, following their intuition. They can walk into a room and notice if there is a shift in energy. They tend to remember personal details. Their feelings get really hurt if you forgot a personal detail about them. So for them, asking questions about how would you feel about that is going to hit them and going to feel more, they're going to feel more connected to you when you ask that type of question versus another archetype that cares more about like, where are we going? What's the next step, right? Momentum, energy. So when you're talking to that person and you can tell that they get really alive and they kind of wake up and like, depending on what you're talking about. So you bring up a conversation, they're really interested in it, they're leaning in, they're connected, you can feel the energy on it. They're the kind of person that wants to know like what are we doing after? What's the next step? Right? They're driven by momentum, energy, movement, excitement, vision. Versus another archetype that couldn't care less about the vision, but wants to know if you're safe, if you're reliable, if they can count on you, consistency. So their questions, they're asking you very practical questions. And so if you're talking to them and they're very practical, they're not as interested in asking them how they feel about how they grew up and how they grew up, how that impacted them.